Hey everyone, it's Vlad Blagojevic and welcome back to the Full-Funnel B2B Marketing Show. And today's guest is Jan Dejosse, who is a VP Marketing at Rydoo. And Jan is marketing executive who work with major B2B enterprise brands such as Alcatel, Showpad, and Colt Telecom. So Jan, welcome.
Thank you, Vladimir, and thank you for having me. Maybe there's one former employer that I also would like to mention because it's a smaller Belgian SaaS company called Adam Software, which is now been taken over by, which is now part of Aprimo. Just the reason because I've spent 8 years there and really learned the trade of B2B marketing there the hard way by failing a lot and getting up and in the end being successful. So just a mention of Adam Software.
No, thank you for mentioning that, because I think as we are going through the story, we are going to focus on Rydoo, but I think if you have some examples that are relevant from, for example, from Adam Software, where you say you learned, this is what's interesting, I think, for listeners.
Not a plug because they don't exist anymore. So they'll be taking over and acquired by another company. So I'm not pushing any publicity here.
No, I think it's going to be very relevant. Like I said, if you have some examples, especially what you call the hard learned lessons, because hopefully we can prevent somebody else to have to go through the same pains you had to go through. So, well, let's just jump in and start about Rydoo and your role there. I know that you have recently been acquired by Marlin Equity Partners. Congratulations. And I was just wondering, like, how is marketing and sales priorities have been impacted by this acquisition?
Well, up till now, not that much, because we're still in our first 2 months of being acquired. And what Marlin normally sets out to do is they have their F100 plan. So the first 100 days after the acquisition, they work with marketing, sales, with everybody in the team to, I would say, validate and challenge the current strategy. And that's what is happening now. So of course the focus is still on we need to grow. It's more about where do we need to focus on, but more importantly, what they do is ask the right questions and make us stand still, take a step back and think about what we are doing and are these the right things or not.
Okay, I like that a lot. So they're asking you some critical questions that are having an impact on you. So thinking of our listeners, running B2B companies, running marketing in B2B companies, can you share some of those questions that you find specifically insightful?
Actually, it's not brain surgeon. It's rocket science. They ask the very obvious questions that we ask ourselves also, but maybe that are so obvious that we forget about them. Things like, what's actually your ICP, your ideal customer profile? And then also, okay, are you really focusing on them, or are you doing also a lot of things, other things in marketing and sales besides trying to acquire logos in that ICP? I think as with most SaaS companies or companies in the stage we are in, Rydoo has grown quite fast in terms of revenue, in terms of team. So things like, what's our ICP? What's the value proposition? How do we position ourselves is something that has grown organically within the team or within the company. And everybody has their opinion or their idea of these things in their heads, but nobody ever took the time to document it and to write it out in black and white and say, guys, this is our ICP. And then probably some people will say, hey, I had a small variation on this, but it's very important to have that crystal clear, and not only have it crystal clear, but also keep it updated, because things change. Where Rydoo moved from the small companies to mid-market and out to the larger mid-market, a lower enterprise. But it's absolutely important to have this somewhere formulated, documented, so that everybody can refer to it. So it's those kinds of things, ICP, where you put your focus. I think also the nice thing with working with Marlin is they have, I think, about 80 to 100 similar companies in their portfolio. So they can provide a lot of benchmarking on all the things, from going to what should be your sales and marketing investment for a company of our size, to what are acceptable conversion rates or acceptable sales performance or marketing performance, and those kinds of things. Yeah.
All right. I think a lot of listeners would like to hear some of the benchmarks, if you remember or can
I don't know if
some of them.
can share them as such, but yeah, the thing is that they built really an internal community where we are put like an online forum, but also other things, so that I'm in touch, or I can reach out to all my peers in all these companies, or they can reach out and say IBM or ABM or what was the last one? I think it was around conversion rates for a specific channel or emails. This is what we have. How do you do it? How do you do things differently?
That's amazing. That's amazing, having access to, and actually, like you say, companies who are in a similar situation or similar size stage. So that's really, really valuable. And you were talking about ICP positioning, and this is something that we often see, like when we analyze, talking, for example, to a new client or a B2B company who is struggling maybe with growth or getting new leads or, whatever. One of the things that we notice often is that it's usually in the fundamentals that the problem lies, actually more in the fundamentals than maybe in the kind of campaigns they run, the channels, et cetera, et cetera. So
I completely agree. Yes. Yeah. It's like, if you're doing a campaign without having defined a real crystal clear ICP and your positioning and your personas and those things, it's like changing the wings on an airplane while being in flight or something like that. Or you have all the material to go somewhere, but actually you don't know really where you have to go to.
Yeah.
And it's difficult, because if you really define your ICP and you stick to it and focus on it, there's also a lot of things where you have to say no to. And that's always really hard. So what I always say is like, it's good to, everybody agrees, we need focus. Yes. And then, okay, but now start also listing and writing down the things we're not going to do, or we're not going to do right now. And then the difficult part comes, but maybe we miss out on these opportunities or this market opportunities. Yeah, bad luck, but we'll focus on this, because from the data, from everything we see, from what we know, this is where we will be likely most successful in what we're doing. So that's where our growth opportunity lies. Yeah.
I like that, because a lot of companies, like you say, are suffering from the fear of missing out, companies, marketers, salespeople. And it feels like, okay, if you're focusing, how do you say, you're losing out, you're missing out. But I think that one way to say no, and what we often do, is we list specifically what we call disqualification criteria. Like, when are we going to disqualify a company? When are we going to say no to a potential client? And like you say, it's difficult, but absolutely, I think like even like on a small business like ours, when we started listing disqualification criteria, I saw a huge impact. Like, I had less meetings, but I had more sales.
And I've seen it rarely, but the best sales I've seen are people that at a certain moment said no to a prospect. Said, you know what? Looking at the challenges or the objections you give me, there's not a match. We're not the right fit for you at this moment, this stage. So, and they were really strong, say, you know what, we'll stop wasting each other's time, and maybe we'll see each other again in a year or in 2 years when things have evolved. But right now there's no match. And I think you have to be very strong to do that. Because for a sales, in the end, normal sales, they grasp every single opportunity they get their hands on and follow up on it. They have to be tenacious, but be able to do that, it's a strong signal also, because then it also shows that you're not just selling anything you want to push down their throat, but you really want to find a solution that fits, that helps the customer or the prospect. Yeah.
Let's say that you're now hired as a CMO in a new company, and you have that question, like Marlene has the question for you, like, are we targeting the right ICP? How would you go about, how would you figure out whether whether that's correct, and also about positioning maybe.
There's a couple of things. There's data. You can always look at your customer base, but that only tells half of the story, because that customer base is from the history and it's not necessarily where your growth is. So it's looking at your customer base, of course, because that also signifies where you had most success in the past. It's looking at market potential. Well, I think most importantly, it's talking with customers. It's just talking with customers and to understand, based on size, region, vertical, any other demographic you have, like where is the best fit we might have? Why do we as Rydoo at the moment have most success with consultancy companies? Why at Adam Software it was more in retail, things like that. And then really understanding also if it's a thing in vertical or is it a specific use case that could be adopted in a completely different verticals, but where they have the same mechanism, I would say, or the same way of working that applies to whatever we're offering. Yeah,
so important, and something again I see over and over again, that people don't talk to their customers enough. What is your approach? Like if you look at your team, if you look at your processes, like who is responsible for talking to customers? When do you have like some structure to do it in a repeatable way? And how do you go about that?
Unfortunately not, I would say. And to be honest, also, I always have the feeling I myself, but the team, the marketing team, doesn't speak to customers enough. It's something we all know we have to do, but it's also something, but I'll do it later or next week or things like that. And then, I have to talk with sales to see who would be available and things like that. I think sometimes I just cut through it and just go to our CRM, see who are like our most successful customers and reach out to them, say, hey, can we have a talk and discuss things? It's always tricky because someone from a GTM position reaching out to a customer, they'll immediately have they want to sell something to me. So you really have to frame the discussion, of course. But it's unfortunately not something we do structurally or follow up or have any KPIs against it. Back at Adam, actually, we did have it. We called it Operation Bear Hug, and I think it comes from IBM, where actually we set targets that each person in the management team had to have, at least 4 customer meetings per quarter, something like that.
Yeah.
So, and that puts a bit pressure on you, because then, but also, of course, it's not just about having the meetings, but then also reverting back to the team saying, hey, I had talks with this and this person, and this is what they said. This is what I learned. Yeah,
I love it. Operation Bear Hug.
Actually, you inspired me to introduce that. Thank you. Yeah,
amazing. So, looking at your team at Rydoo, I wonder, like, how do you structure your marketing?
Yeah, I see 4 different groups within the marketing, and it's for me the natural flow how marketing works or flows. First of all, we have the branding, the brand team, where we don't have anyone dedicated now, and probably not someone for the foreseeable future. But we have like our designer, or creative designer, who's part of that. And for me, brand is much more than do we have the right colors and is the logo placed right in the right place, and do we have a nice font or something like that. It's really about developing the brand identity. Why do we exist? Where do we want to go to? What's our contribution to the world? But also, who would we be, or how would we act if Rydoo or the company is a person? And how do we talk to people? Is it formally, informally, things like that? So that's the branding. That's very high level messaging, I would say, or high level positioning. Then I think a very crucial role, product marketing. And I think we're not going to have the debate now, or if product marketing sits in marketing or product. It sits in both in the end. But product marketing, I think the biggest challenge for them is to translate any products or product features and things like that into business needs, and to be able to instruct or educate the marketing team, sales team, but also the external world on how we position and how we message on certain products, product modules, product features towards certain or specific personas. It sounds all very easy, but I think it's the most difficult job in marketing, actually, product marketing. Then we have a content team. The third team is content team. As the name says, they create content. They create content from a strategic thought leadership point of view. And they say, we want to own the market or do communication around these specific topics. They get also input from product marketing, of course. They're saying, hey, we've got these releases or these nice things. We've built a story around it. Here's a story, up to you to build the content around it and get it outdoors. And also they get a lot of input from the fourth team, the demand gen team or the grow team, and our sales, of course, that also requesting for specific documents they need to convince or to share with their prospects. And then, of course, the fourth team, as I mentioned, the most visible team, the easiest to measure team, the demand gen team, where we have our digital marketeers, webinar event manager, which is more webinar thing, conversational marketing, so everything to do with chatbots and nurtures and all those kinds of things, and a web developer.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you have these different functions, but do you have some sort of a KPI that is overall for the whole marketing team?
We have a KPI, and it's a bit controversial because not everybody agrees with it, or it's like pipe. How much pipe have we generated every single month? And I'm saying this is controversial or difficult to accept for some, because as a marketeer, you don't have full control over the pipe. You deliver MQLs normally, or you try to get as many demo requests in, the right demo requests in, and it's up to an SDR team to convert those into pipe. But I specifically chose that, and not looking at, I mean, we are looking at leads and MQLs because they are leading metrics that show us, is there interest, do we have enough reach, and all those things. But the ultimate goal is pipe, and not inbound pipe, but total pipe. Because even for inbound pipe, we do have an end-to-end responsibility. It's not just about getting the leads in and converting to MQLs and tossing them over the wall. No, we also need to be there to work with our SDR team or BDR team so that they know, what do I have to do with this? And why did this MQL? Why are you giving to this? And what's content? What are the things I can say to convert this to pipe? And also, so that's for the inbound pipe. For the outbound, so we split our pipe into inbound, outbound, and partner-generated pipe. But I also want to make sure that we as a marketing team support our SDRs in outbounding, giving them the right ICP definitions, the right content and things like that. And also our partner team doing the right things with or through our partners to generate pipe.
Yeah, you mentioned also like product management, surely also supporting in messaging in the right.
Yes, and of course for people in like a content team or even product marketing, it's even further away because they don't have a direct impact, but still just setting the scene and saying, hey, pipe is in the end, the end goal is of course net new revenue or bookings, but in order to have that, you need pipe. So let's concentrate on that and ask yourself, for everything you're doing, how does this contribute? How can this contribute to pipe? So for instance, product marketing, they have their, I would say, the more fluffy structural things like ICP definitions, personas, description, and things like that. But also they're in charge of cross-sell campaigns, because which module or which product feature are we going to try to cross-sell, and how are we going to do that? So they have actually they can have a very direct impact on pipe generation.
Now, if you look at that, you have basically the pipe generation as a main goal. And I think this is really smart. I mean, if you had like MQLs, then people would just focus on MQLs that would later not convert. So you would have all sorts of problems. But one thing that I did notice with companies who try to make that transition is that, you know, what is the definition of pipe? Because sometimes, okay, it's a booked meeting. Okay, we are done. So how do you make sure that this is really like qualified pipeline?
With us, pipe is so the method. I think the process is not so much different from other companies. We deliver MQLs to SDRs or SDRs. They follow up. They set a meeting for an account executive with us, and as soon as the AE has had that meeting and accepts it and says, yes, this is a real opportunity, we have the budget already, the need and things like that, they convert it into an opportunity. They already have an indicative value to it, and that's then the pipe. So it's only when there's a real opportunity that's likely to become a customer.
And like you described, and like you said, like described by the account executive as an opportunity. They're very aligned on.
And they are normally, they're not going to put anything in pipe just because we gently ask it, because they are measured on that pipe, and they're not going to put anything in pipe, because they know that from that pipe I have to close X%, otherwise. So yeah,
of course. So okay, this is a very simple approach, and I think I like it. But if you became a CMO again, like if you go to another company, become a CMO, they don't use that as KPI, and you believe this is the right way, how would you go about making that transition?
It's about setting the right targets. I think in companies where you don't have this, where you don't have a common goal or a common target between marketing and sales, you'll probably see that there's not a lot of sales and marketing alignment, because there, and I've been in that situation, marketing will focus on leads and MQLs, and if they reach their number, hey, we've done everything we could and we should, and it's a sales problem. And most likely it isn't, because there's always discussion about the quality of your MQLs and not just throwing everything over the hedge, things like that. So I think to come into a company, that's the first thing to say, yeah, but what's our marketing targets? And I know I'm very focused on numbers, so it's pipe. There are some more aspirational and qualitative ambitions within marketing, but in the end, to have that common goal, that common number, that's also common with sales, already changes the mindset of a lot of people. And I think people understand it, that it's not just about having nice lead and MQL reports and then saying that we've done everything we can.
One thing that I found extremely effective was analyzing just one, for example, I just analyzed one campaign with 1,300 MQLs. And I just asked a simple question, just looked like how many of those actually became opportunities. And you know what? Like we had maybe more than 400 or 500 people in there who were the right match with ICP and everything, but only, I believe, like 2 or 3 real opportunities came out. And then then you can start having the conversation about, is this the right way to do things or not? So I think for a lot of companies, if they would do that, they would discover that maybe this is not the best way to go about marketing. And
yes, the thing is also, in the end, the margin is a long-term game, and so and how to put it, so it has to be, we look at campaigns, of course, and campaign performance and those kinds of things. We also do the reverse engineering, like what's a new booking, a new one deal, how did we get there, what were the different touch points, how did they come in, and things like that. But with attribution, the inconvenience with attributing things is you can only attribute to those things that you can measure. And so we see, oh, we've got a lot of leads and MQLs coming into paid social, great, and quite a few do make it to pipe and new bookings and things like that. But what you don't measure is, why did that person click on an ad? Because there were a lot of things that happened before. So the demand gen is about creating awareness, and it's okay to spend quite some money on campaigns where you don't have direct pipe, but that, in the end, with the leads, the MQLs that you generated, you created awareness within those. And probably most likely they won't convert to any pipe or opportunities now, but they might in a year or 6 months or a year or 2 years. But then you're no longer going to attribute it to that specific campaign of 2 years ago. Funny thing, just an anecdote, only yesterday, we got an opportunity that was that's created by sending a mail in 2014, so 7 years ago. So send out a mail 7 years ago, and yesterday that person replied, yeah, we were not ready then, but we're ready now. So it's creating that. Well, that's probably a very extreme example, but it shows that it's a very long-term thing. And so coming back to the attribution, if you then further dig into why did you, because then we need more demo requests, so we do a campaign to ask for a demo. Nobody wakes up in the morning say, you know what, I'm gonna go around and ask for some demos. Something must have happened before that. We need a tool for this, or we need a solution for this. These people, I've seen content from them, or if I do a Google search, I find them. So let's talk to them. When you ask customers, actually, and it's not something we do structurally, we should. If you ask customers, how did you find this, or prospects that make it to pipe, how did you find this? What was the trigger? For instance, about 1/3, we find out, are customer referrals, or people changing jobs, coming to a new company, say, hey, I worked with Rydoo, I want to work with Rydoo here as well, or users. And that's something you do not measure unless you add it to a form and you ask for it, or you reach out to these people and ask for that. So that's actually what we're doing now in a more structural way. For the new bookings every month, we send them a 5-question survey. Where did you find this? Did you use Google? Things like that, just to be able to know what really happened, and not how do we attribute it to a campaign, or to our paid social, or to our search, or whatever.
Okay, I think this is like really important. So I'd just like to summarize some of the key points, because I think it's so important that people understand it. So the first of all is that you can as much attribute a sale to one touch point. It's like saying, I gain weight because I ate that hamburger yesterday. Like, I mean, there's so many things, of course, you did to gain weight or to close a complex sale, so that you can't really attribute. So you have to be careful about attribution. And the way that you do this, and I like that a lot, is by reverse engineering deals, and basically very simply asking people, you know, what were all the different touch points, what led them to consider you, and doing that as part of your conversations with prospects. And maybe it will become part of the bear hug or something like that.
But the difficulty is, of course, everybody above, besides, like, hey, what's your most successful campaign, or what's your best working channel? And I always have to disappoint these people, because there's not a silver bullet. There's not like this one thing. If there was one thing, everybody would be doing it. It's a mix of a lot of things. You just sometimes have to do the things that you know make sense and are good, even though that you cannot measure the impact as such. I mean, why would you create white papers? It's to educate and to bring value and help your prospects, but nobody is going to download your white paper, read through it, and then say, okay, well, no one. It's very very extreme that someone would read a white paper and then say, I need these guys, I need a demo, and I'm going to buy their product. But you create awareness around the challenges that they might have, the solutions out there, and it's just planting seeds. Planting seeds is not something you can measure to the fullest.
But I think that this is so important as well, this topic of creating content that educates your buyers and how you distribute that. And I know we had this very interesting discussion about on the one hand, gating versus ungating content. On the other hand, content experience is something that you have been experimenting. So can you maybe just share your experience?
We are still experimenting with that, or shifting, I would say. We have had and still have, to a certain extent, the traditional approach. We have a content piece, we launch it, it's gated, people fill in a form, their leads, and we nurture those, and we know they have downloaded it. What we don't do, or what we stop doing, is it's not because every download, and not every download are transferred to SDRs for follow-up. We say this is low intent. They just read something. We're not. We just leave them in our lead pool, I would say. We are transitioning that, because the only thing you know is this person downloaded something or not. If they read it, have they shared it with someone else? You don't know. So we are transitioning to more content experience, where instead of pointing a person to one single piece of content, try to take them through a journey of content, like, oh, you were interested in this, but also you can read that, or there's a case study related to this. And instead of doing that like in a traditional nurture with mails and read this and read that and things like that, just providing a journey, a content journey or experience. And also enable us to go further into how long has that person actually watched that video, or did they read the PDF completely, or only the first 2 paragraphs, the use case and things like that. So also it helps us to understand much better what content is actually working or valuable for our prospects, and also how large or how big is the intent that person. It's not they just downloaded something, they actually read it or not. Yeah.
All right.
But as said, we're still very much in the beginning days of that and taking baby steps at the moment. Yeah.
All right. I think now there is a lot of actionable advice already in this, how to transition from pure MQL driven to first install the KPIs, and then also how to basically then use your content in the best way to drive that engagement, drive the demand. So this is, I think, very, very interesting, I think, for the listeners. And I know that one more thing that is kind of related, but still more about on the team level, because you mentioned, okay, you're not attributing everything, you're doing different kinds of campaigns, you're doing different kinds of activities. So how do you then prioritize what you should be investing?
I think we are, I mean, we are doing the normal thing with lead sources and attributing things, but we also know that we have to take this with a grain of salt, because you are disproportionately attributing things to those channels that you can measure best.
Yes.
So so it is important to measure it, and we still measure leads in MQLs, but we also know that there's more to the story than just those numbers. I think that's important. How do we prioritize? By being very, very disciplined and strict. When I joined, I think in a marketing department or a marketing team, there's never a lack of good new ideas. Oh, let's do this, and then the next week, no, but we should be doing this. Oh, and something about that. And at a certain moment, but the thing is, with all those ideas, you never get to execute them well, because you're halfway executing one idea, and there's already something else that sounds even more interesting and sexy and things like that. So you jump to the. So at a certain moment, I say, okay, stop. We're going to do something very boring, and that's we're going to put all these ideas in an Excel sheet. Very, very simple. And then we're going to do voting. Everybody can vote. Everybody has the same weight of voting, and we vote on 3 dimensions in how easy is it to execute this, what's the expected impact, how big is the impact you think on pipe, and I lost the third one.
Certainty, perhaps.
Yes.
Certain or that this will work, like we have like some previous evidence or
like that. Yeah. And then everybody gets to vote. Largest score, that's what we do first, and we forget about everything else. We only work on one ID at a time, and then we do it also properly. We execute it properly. We see the results. We see if it in the end it was not such a good idea, or maybe we have to make some changes and things like that, but we really execute it well before jumping to the next one. Yeah.
I think, again, another very important lesson, because you hear so much from thought leaders in marketing about the importance of creativity. And while I think it's important to do things differently than your competitors, not doing all the same things as everybody else, what I hear from people like you who are in the trenches is that there is more creativity, we have more ideas than we can implement. This is the reality. So I really like this very practical approach to do it, especially when it's coupled to the shared goal of pipe. So when you talk about impact and people are voting on that, they know, okay, it's the impact that we need to have on our main KPI, not just on whatever I might like or want to see happen.
In full disclosure, I've got an engineering background, so I'm very much into numbers. And I sometimes say my job, my goal is to make marketing boring. But the thing is, you have people who study marketing, and then they come into marketing team and they say they have all these things about how creative and out of the box these things, and then they come in and actually marketing is so, well, boring is not the right term, but it's doing the right things towards the right people. and I think also with having more discipline on what you do, having processes and how you do these things, that liberates your mind and frees up time to be more creative in the end, because you don't have to always think about, okay, what's the next step and how do we do this?
Yes.
You've got that covered. It's somewhere in an Excel sheet or an Asana board or a Miro board or whatever, but you've got that. And then you can take more time indeed, as you say, to think about, okay, how can we do this differently? How can we do it more creatively and things like that?
Yes.
But yeah.
I think a lot of people don't realize that actually constraints help with creativity. They actually, motivate people to think more creatively. How can we do it within the constraints? And also they drive it in the right direction. So this is what I really like.
Yeah.
Jan, I had so many more questions that I planned, but we are coming up to towards the end of the episode. So maybe just because, like I said, I had so many questions that I wanted to ask you. If people have more questions, where can they find you? Where can they learn more about you? Where they can connect to you? What is the best way to reach out to you?
The easiest way is on LinkedIn. I just checked. There are 3 people with my family name on LinkedIn. Once my father, he's retired, so that's not me. The other one is my brother, who is a lawyer. So I'm the 3rd one. So if you just look for Dejosse or Dejosse, you'll find me on LinkedIn.
Love it. Thank you very much. I had so much fun and I learned so much, and I'm sure the listeners will learn a lot as well.
Thanks for having me. Okay, thank you. Goodbye, everybody.